All right, I'd like to welcome everybody here to today's talking title here. And we are going to be sharing everything you wanted to know about title, but we're afraid to ask today. And we're going to be real cognizant of your time, 30 minutes or less in and out. And we'll just start with a couple of introductions here. I'm Larry Johnson. I'm one of the presenters with Midwest here. Also online will be Heidi Thompson, one of our assistant vice presidents. We have a couple of our lenders that will be listening in as well, Robert and Drew from our metro areas in Rochester. We have Aaron and Shelby that will be joining us. We also have Brianna and Melissa that will be on board as well. And our special guest of the day, Michelle Tiede-Morris. Now, I've known Michelle for a number of years. She's very knowledgeable when it comes to title, very good with clients, and she's an executive closer with Title Smart with over 25 years of experience. And I've witnessed her close deals firsthand. But she's also a wealth of knowledge when it comes to seeing a lot of different situations and things like that. So I'll go ahead and introduce Michelle. And Michelle, I'm going to go ahead and let you take it and run with it.
I think she's
Oh,
muted.
she's on mute.
Oh, you're on mute there.
She's on mute.
There we go. Sorry about
There
that.
we go.
I didn't want the echo and then forgot it was my turn. So hi again, everyone. Thanks for the invitation. It's exciting to be in an alliance and group like this, and hope everybody's enjoying the spring rain. Hopefully it'll just stop at rain and we can get our sunshine back.
Right.
Just wanted to take some time and introduce myself. As Larry said, I've got a little over 25 years of experience. Just ins and outs of the industry. I am a mobile closer as well. I've been with Title Smart going on 9 years, with Title Smart specific, and then a few other companies throughout those years. And I'm a mobile closer. We also have multiple locations that we can close at. But I offer my services mobily because I can commute to either the lender's office to close your transactions, or to an agent's office. I'm not exclusive to being in my office, because I like to travel as well. If I'm stuck in an office, I don't get to see what's going on in the world, or, if the sun is shining for that matter. But most importantly, I wanted to reach out and introduce, some of you may be familiar with it. It is new to a lot of people, but it is now the RON platform. So if Larry, I don't know if I can switch. There you go. We have now the RON platform. RON, who is RON? What is RON? It's the remote online notary signing solution. Oftentimes we have clients, specifically sellers in most cases, that are unfortunately not able to be in attendance. They may be traveling or out of state, or live out of state, have already moved. And for them to get to a physical notary or come to closing is just, unfortunately not an option. So we now have, it was approved through legislation a couple years ago, of course, for the need, the remote online notarization, which is allowing for us to do specifically that, a remote notary session. So it's a platform through Notarize that I myself, as a RON notary, connect with the client, and we have our closing session right online, and they sign electronically through that platform. As you can see, there's clients that qualify. They have to be U.S. citizens, or residential alien with a social security number. They have to have a U.S. government issued ID. We have to share the same language, but we do have interpreters available if that's something that's needed. The interpreter has to be on our end. That's important to understand, merely because we have to make sure that what I'm relaying is the same words being transferred over, if you will. And we have a few different language speaking closers here within our company. The other thing is they have to have necessary technology, and that is, of course, a computer or tablet. They do have the capabilities of utilizing the platform on their cell phone. However, when they do their sign-in, it can be a little complex doing it only from a mobile phone because the knowledge-based system that they have to go through to verify their identity is very exclusive. So not only are they verifying their identity, but they're having to upload photo ID and do a knowledge-based test. So toggling between windows can be a little tricky if they're doing it only from a cell phone. So we always suggest that they have a computer with camera and or a tablet, and then the cell phone to get their verification information. If you want to go to the next one, Larry, when is Ron allowed? Currently, not all lenders are allowing for Ron signings, whether that be on the buyer side. Exclusively on the buyer side, lenders typically aren't allowing for Ron, merely because they're still wanting their promissory notes and mortgages wet signed. So to be physically present with a notary. As a mobile notary, though, that of course, first option to all of agents and lenders and their clients is that I offer to travel to meet them. Our next option is always doing mail out and being able to coordinate with the clients to meet with a notary physically where they are, and or then our option is Ron. Now, if the lender is okay with us doing a warranty deed, oftentimes we have a lot of sellers that are able to utilize this platform. There's certain circumstances we want to make sure as to why the client would want to use Ron. Using Ron because I can't get off work or I just don't want to go. We'd like people to know that we want them present at their closing because it's a big deal, whether it's their sale or their buy. And as far as the preparation for the clients, well, I'm going to revert back to the parties that have to approve and allow. So not only is it the lender, but a buyer has to be okay with it, and sellers, and the title insurance company. So if a seller is going to be utilizing the Ron platform for signing, the buyer's title company has to make sure that they approve of it and will insure that deed that transfers title. So that's important to know. The Ron signing prep for the signers is, having their valid ID, a mobile phone number, an email address, obviously having a stable internet connection so we don't lose it. I just experienced a transaction utilizing the notarized platform, and there were some technical difficulties, excuse me, unfortunately, but that was with the platform. They've got that figured out now. But with the notarized platform, and once a session begins, we hope that we can get through it without any difficulties or verification. But if the client does not pass the knowledge base test, the session will not begin. So they're not allowed to sign anything using the notarized platform unless the session is actually in place. So like this, I have to be present and the client would be present. They're going to simply get an email notification that we'll be doing it from that. And then they'll create a login. They'll be able to do their knowledge-based system. And once they pass that and upload their IDs, the session will begin and we'll do our online notary closing with them. So it adds a great feature to your clients that may be in a situation where they just aren't going to be able to be present for signing. Of course, pre-signing is still available. This isn't necessarily to be, only if they can attend the physical closing, but if it's a if we do a Ron with a seller, we're going to schedule it in advance of the actual closing date either way, just to be prepared if we would end up having to terminate the session and then reschedule for any reason. So there is that option. Just another couple things aside from Ron, I'm gonna get to my next one. And if you want to switch to the next one, Larry. Some common title issues, and I'm just going to briefly go over these. These are just things that often come up at our closings in the process and or misunderstanding. And the top one is spousal marital interest. It is often misunderstood as to the interest of a spouse. It is really black and white that if there is a marriage during the ownership of property, regardless of whose name is on that title, the spouse will be required to sign. Often we will get a a spouse that buys, then gets married, and then wonders why the spouse would have to sign. It's the marital interest law in Minnesota. Same goes that if they bought single, were married, and divorced, we still have to convey the interest of that spouse during the marriage. Oftentimes the divorce decree will take care of that for us, but as long as there was a marriage during ownership, we have to address that matter. So that's often something, one of the big ones that we run into that is misunderstood. The nice thing, I'm going to revert back to Ron, is that we can do them as joint sessions. So if we have multiple signers, we can do them all together, even if they're all on different devices. So they wouldn't necessarily all have to be squished into the same place. We can do one session and they can be in multiple locations.
So that's interesting, Michelle. I was actually going to bring that up while you were talking about that, because often with the spousal rights, what I've run into is that if they're separated, sometimes they don't want to be in the same building or can't be in the same building. So that's a nice advantage of that digital platform that I think we'll see an unintended consequence of Ron.
Yes.
For
So
benefit.
if we have if we have that situation, Larry, it's important to understand that if we're going to utilize Ron for the deed to transfer title, both of them would have to do it via Ron commonly. For us as Title Smart, we're okay if one does Ron and someone signs in person. But again, if it's for a seller, we have to make sure that we're meeting the requirements of what the buyer's title company's preference would be on that deed. But again, we could schedule separate in-person signings in those cases as well. Those are the little details that are good to know when a file comes in, if we have those things that we need to overcome and plan for. Any other questions on that? Okay. A few other things. Common title issues are, of course, the liens and debts. Of course, we cover all of those. Those will cover any types of bankruptcies, judgments, tax liens, and of course, any mortgages. Those all come with our title search. Boundary issues. In the state of Minnesota, we're not required to have surveys completed unless it's a land split. But with all of the title insurance policies that we issue at Title Smart, we have what's called survey coverage, and that's for the lender. And a portion of that does trickle over to the owner as well when they get their owner's policy. And we, in essence, just do a property inspection to make sure that we don't have any issues with fence lines, trees, buildings, etc., on what would be considered the platted boundary line. Then we've got on here, of course, the bankruptcies, the forged documents. I can honestly say in 25 years, I've not experienced that. So that's a good thing. We did, however, have a scenario where there was a identity theft case. So fraudulent seller portraying to be the property owner had the fake ID, all of the account information. So very scary, really, that this person had stolen identity and attempted to sell some vacant land. So because of that case, we've integrated some other identity verification options for us to hopefully catch that matter, if you will. We're not identity police, but everyone should have a government issued ID and verify certain things. So the nice thing with the RON is that they are the RON platform. It's a knowledge base. So if you can't answer those questions, you don't get to even say you are who you are if you got them wrong. Easements on the property, those are commonly recorded. So as long as they've been of record on the property title, we're going to review them and make sure that they're disclosed to all parties. And then if there's new ones that come about, we need to make sure that they're reviewed and properly drafted. As a title company, any title company is not able to draft easement agreements generally, merely because this is something, when an easement is created, a surveyor would have to describe where exactly that survey will be located. So if someone is going to create an easement for access, they need to be sure that a survey was done to identify the exact description location of that easement. So if you've got cases like that, we just review them on a case-by-case basis. And then some, the last one is divorce etiquettes, and this kind of refers back to the spousal right thing and Larry's comment about if there's a situation where that is the case. It's just good to know those details so that we can properly prepare for them for closing and signing arrangements. I've had, excuse me, I have had more than my share of occasions where I've had to be the center referee, if you will. But my goal is that I am the middle person. I'm not on any one side. I'll be there to listen if one wants, sometimes they'll just want to vent. But my goal is to make sure that everybody understands that our goal is to get to the end table so that we can have a successful closing and move on to the next chapter of our lives. And that seems to be kind of my presentation of that, and it has often gone over quite smoothly when it's brought into that perspective of let's just settle the waters and move on. So rather than dragging it out, because nobody really wants to do that in essence. So that's that. Any Q&A? Any questions?
So one of the questions I have here, and this might be more from a lending standpoint, is oftentimes we see the owner's policy on there and it's listed as optional. Is there a reason that a client would want to take that or not want to take that? I mean, what does, I understand what that does, but it might be benefit for some of the others to hear that.
Well, here is why it is always going to be, we ask that it's always included on the preliminary settlement statement. An owner's title insurance policy by Minnesota law is optional. The client themselves, the owner themselves, is not required to have a policy to insure themselves. Now, that in mind, the often misconception is that, well, as long as the lender has one, I don't need one. And that is not the case. If the owner does not have their own title policy, they will not be insured if a problem arises. Now, if a title problem arises, it's often not something that's being brought to us by a lender. For example, there would be, say, a outstanding judgment from a prior owner. Unfortunately, now we do our best, obviously, to clear title in any case, of course, just as all do. But say, for instance, somehow it was an oversight, that judgment was missed. Now that becomes a title problem for the new owner. And if they do not have an owner's title policy, ultimately that can be their responsibility. The insurance policy is for who the insured is. If the lender is the only one that has one, the lender is the only one that's insured. So for the most part, you as the lender are going to be insured. I guess honestly, typically I don't see anything as to why a lender would file a claim, but they want their policy, they want their mortgage insured on the property they're taking a lien on. And the owner, we just, you know, it's written as optional because by law we have to put that in there. Usually there's not a question about it, because once they understand that they are not insured, if they do not choose not to take it, they opt to going into it. And we just recommend that, you know, it's just always there as a part of the quote and the fees.
So Michelle, what's the typical, when you guys get the title order, what's the typical time frame? How long does it generally take you guys to get that put together?
So once we receive a title order and the purchase agreement, our turn time, we like to, depending on the county, and the abstracting, typically we like to say at 7 days.
Okay, so the
For the
reason I
most
asked,
part, if not less.
okay, the reason I asked this question is for our realtor partners. So a lot of times when the lender, we're pulling credit on your client, the credit reports aren't always going to show judgments. And it depends on the age of the judgment and things like that. So the sooner we can get title back, that's why I asked that question to Michelle. So most of the companies like hers can get them back in fairly short time. If you're using private attorneys or anything, the lead times can be a little bit longer, and it's important to get them back sooner rather than later, because if we have some judgments hanging out there, it is something that could impact the loan and whether or not that house is going to close on time. So we want to know sooner rather than later. So just another reason to use companies like Michelle's, because they do have that faster turnaround time. And it doesn't happen often, but when it does, we just want to know sooner rather than later. We are coming up on our 30-minute time frame here. We've got about 5 minutes left. Does anyone else have any questions? I feel like I've monopolized some of the questions here. If there's anyone on board that would like to ask, since we've got the resource here with Michelle, please feel free. All right. Hearing none, Michelle, you want to wrap anything up there for us?
Yeah, just the last thing that I'll add in again is that if you've got any questions, I like to be utilized as a resource for title. So, you know, even if you just have a general question, please feel free to ask the question. We always, just as I do for mortgage and real estate, I go to the expert that does it every day. Oftentimes I get, what are the rates? I don't know, call Larry, call Melissa. I don't follow that. That's not what I follow daily. But if you've got people that are just in question, just not even sure about something on title or how their names appear or how it's an estate, please just feel free to pick up the phone, and I'm happy to help with any questions that you have. Estates are kind of a big thing when you're helping families sell homes. So I'm just here to help as a resource and work together.
Awesome. I can verify that. I have used Michelle on multiple occasions for just bouncing something off of her, asking a general question. I have her details back up there if anyone wants to see that. Her details should also have been on that email that I'd sent out to the realtor partners here with the sheet explaining the remote notary service that they offer. And with that being said, I want to thank everyone for popping on, taking the time here today to chat with us. And we do this monthly, try to do it 30 minutes in and out. We're going to get content that hopefully is pertinent to our industry. If there's anything you'd like to see us cover or any questions you have, please shoot myself or whoever invited you an email. Rates are floating around 6% today. We've seen a little bit of a reduction, but let's wait and see what's happening. We got a couple of major reports coming out on Wednesday and Friday that could impact things, and all this oil business overseas can sometimes kind of spook the markets a little bit. So kind of let your clients know that rates are on a downward trend, but we can't be held responsible for any weird stuff that happens on the world economic stage there. So thank you all for tuning in. We hope to see you at the next one, and everyone have a great and productive week.
Great. Happy Easter, everyone. Thank you.
Happy Easter, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.